sometimes parents or other, even professionals misunderstand about disability labels and special education services. So special education services are school education, right? Legally, we have to provide the children with the disabilities, these special education services. And IDEA so far recognized the 13 disabilities. These 13 disabilities do not mean school system must provide a categorized disability category based on disability categories. So we have to provide the services. Since it is not medical treatment or any therapy, it is school education is education. So mainly school education provides academic education based on the grade levels. So when students have a disability labels among these 13, any of the 13 disabilities, it does not mean school education have to provide services for that disability, so their disability could be lightened or weakened. It is not that. They have a disability, so it's a little bit sad term because we already agree they have those limitations. So what we see is that disability, whether that disability interferes children's school education or not, that is a major criteria. So even though the disability child has, however, child, it does not, interfere or prohibit their school education, then they may need accommodations, but they don't need IEP, individualized education. So let's say child may have a visual impairment. However, child could see okay with corrective eyes, like my glasses or contact lenses or laser surgery. And these days we have so many those surgeries. So originally child had a visual impairment. However, the child got the treatment. So now that is not really interfere his learning, and then we do not provide special education. However, child still may need some accommodations for based on his disability. He may have some, hindrances, and then we provide those services. So sometimes, without thinking, it's not just because people misunderstood, but I believe it's more like unconsciously they believe special education is just like, working on disabilities. Then these children come to school, and then how about their school education? Let's say, high instance disabilities, mild disabilities, pretty much what we work on children are academic skills. So if we work on their disabilities, that means we cannot provide academic teaching, academic education, right? So pretty much based on their disabilities, but regardless of what disabilities they have, pretty much we measure their intellectual levels are, okay for academic education. So when we say educable, means if they can receive academic education and follow academic education, they can make academic learning outcomes. That is for mild disabilities. And then we have a comprehensive disabilities, more significant disabilities. Then these children, educational goals and objectives and adaptive behaviors, because these children's education, disabilities are too significant. So that means their intellectual functional intelligence are low. So it's very hard for them to follow academic content, and they have more urgent needs for their life living, right? So school education is an education, institute, education center, agencies. So we provide school education. That means we provide academic education. So these children with these, any of 13 disabilities, IDEA approved disabilities, what we mainly see, we see they can learn academic content or they cannot learn academic content. So that's the major, school psychologists may see it. So even though they bring medical doctors' diagnosis of autism and ADHD, and then they bring that diagnosis to schools, it does not mean school system obligated to, provide special education services because they have disabilities. We still, school psychologists may do cognitive evaluation that is simply just IQ test. However, cognitive evaluation and then academic achievement. So there is educational analysis evaluation. So if school psychologists evaluate those cognitive evaluation, and then they do IQ test, and then they do this achievement educational assessment as well. So both they could do. However, each year, every IEP season, special education teachers gotta use a standardized evaluation to get the present level of children's academic achievement and functional performances. So that's mainly basic one. So let's say that means we have two sets of groups, even though they have all different disabilities. However, we have mild disabilities. That means intellectually mild. We have severe profound disabilities. However, their intellectual ability is pretty low for learning, because learning is all about the mental work. So it requires their intellectual abilities. So let's say children with other health impairment, children with physical impairment, orthopedic impairment. So their impairment is pretty much their body system, right? It's not mental. So if they show intellectually okay intelligence, and then their educational goals and objectives on academics, not physical impairment, not health impairment, those are their, disabilities. So, however, still, schools, special education schools, center-based programs, they have nurses, and they have some specialists and more professional teams in those more special education focused programs. It's not to work on their disabilities, because they have difficulties because of disabilities. So it can, stop their participation in school education. So those nurses and specialists, behavior specialists, and they are there to work on that so they can participate in school education. So mainly these two groups. So we have 13 disability categories. However, if we focus on school education, we have a big two groups. So first group is a mild intellectually, they are able to learn academic subjects. And then we have children, their intellectual ability is not available for school education. Not available is not right terms, but they are not capable for school education. That means it's intellectually. So intellectually capable for school education, intellectually not capable of for school education. So that's the big two groups. So these children intellectually not capable for school education, and then most of their educational goals and objectives are adaptive behaviors. And that's for independent self-help skills. And these groups are IEP goals and objectives are mostly academic content. Okay, so these are two big ones, so we got to understand. And these children are mild disabilities. Mostly they are moms. It does not matter they have intellectual disability and ASD, learning disability, ADHD, communication disorder. However, they are all go up to their mother is cognitive developmental disorders. So cognitive developmental issues have them showing these disabilities. When we say mild, five developmental milestones, right? When we have a babies growing up and then pediatricians check, that is cognitive, language, social, emotional, motor, right? So these disabilities are pretty much these developmental domains. Any of developmental domains. So it's like intellectual disabilities, pretty much cognitive part, more focused, and then language. And then ASD is most of all these five cross-categorically. ASD has all those difficulties, including even motor skills, learning disabilities. Intellectually, they are okay. However, still they have a cognitive and this language part. And then social and emotional they may have weaknesses, and then their it will affect their inferential comprehensions. So these and then motor clumsiness is also part of learning disabilities. And then communication, it is a language, right? It is a cognition. Even though it's intellectually they are okay, however, still they may have a cognitive weaknesses and impact their language part. And then those motor part could be motor sensory. So these motor, it could in the beginning, child has to grow up without any physical disabilities. So it is more like a bad. However, later on, this is a motor sense. So most of our students have a motor sense issues. So I made this in another lecture on this motor sense. So these mild high instance disabilities are pretty much there because their mother, they have one mother, and then these are all siblings. So please think of that concept. So mother is a cognitive developmental disorders, disabilities. Under there, we have mild intellectual disability baby. We have an ASD baby. We have a learning disability baby, and ADHD baby, and communication disorder baby. So they are all same siblings, and then mother is a cognitive developmental disabilities. And then this cognitive developmental disability itself, this mom has their own mom. So these disability children, they see it's a grandma. That is neurodevelopmental disabilities, neurodevelopmental disorders. Okay, so neurodevelopmental disorder here, and then this neurodevelopmental disorder has 4 siblings, and then one is a cognitive developmental disorders, and next one is a metabolic genetic condition disorders. Third one is a central nervous system disorders like a cerebral palsy, and the next one is a neuromuscular disorders. So these are pretty much show somehow physical body sense, their issues. However, these cognitive developmental disorders, these children, these mom's children, and all these disabilities are pretty much all school education related difficulties. So basically, these children have shared these 5 developmental domains, or just only the matter of which one is more deficient, which one is lightly deficient, more severely, more lightly. Okay. However, the teachers, special education teachers, are all working on same thing. So school education is academics, and these children in special education and all academic subject areas. Okay, so it's like mostly we focus on literacy and numeracy. So reading and math, that is a major we work on, because those are 2 major core subject areas. Not many schools or states provide social studies and science. However, from secondary level, they may include science and may include the social studies part. However, in elementary, self-contained classroom, special education services may provide somehow, but it's not, because of their intensity of disabilities, not many special education teachers could have those lessons. They just barely cover because they're all levels. No, they cannot read. So how far you can, teach other subject areas. So that's, how you understand. And then these special education teachers. So we should train special education teachers to certification areas. One is for mild disabilities. So it's not, how mild disability we work on. It's a academic subject. However, these children all failed in this academic subject. So we train these teachers diagnostic education for academic subject, mainly literacy and numeracy. That is a special education, one area of a special education certificate. And then the other area for these more significant disabilities, these children for adaptive behaviors. So these teachers more, we have teachers' preferences. I want to work with the mild disabilities. I want to work with the severe disabilities. However, again, special education services or school education services are not individual disability areas. We work on academic subjects or adaptive behavior subject. These are two big parts. If we certify the teachers like that, and then we can train teachers more specifically for each areas. Right now in Michigan, we still provide endorsed special education teachers based on disabilities. So cognitive impairment, learning disability, autism, and emotional disturbance. We provide services like that. And then these teachers, what these teachers do is all same. If they have intellectually, they are capable, and then we teach them academics. If their intellectual level is too low, and then we provide adaptable behaviors, right? So pretty much it doesn't matter what license you have or what certification you have, or what you do is the same. So instead of we waste time and money on certifying in each category, we combine all these and then we teach still they got to understand each disabilities, characteristics and difficulties and limitations. We got to know that. Why? Because we have to provide a diagnostic education, clinical education. So we have to do diagnostic teaching. These children cannot learn and have difficulties learning in typical teaching and learning method because they have limitations. So that limitation is mostly cognitive limitations, intellectual limitations, right? So we have to find a different way of teaching. Instead of most of education we provide is too much disability focused education. So I'm going to talk about this one in next lecture. We do not provide disability focused education. Okay, so we have to see not disability focused, what caused these disabilities, what limitation in the beginning, what part they had a limited development. We have to find that area, and then we have to remediate that area before we move on to school education.